Okay, so I'll start. Hi, I'm Janice. I know some of you, I don't know some of you. Um, Thank you for coming. Feel free to ask questions in the chat or unmute yourself to make questions or comments. I will be talking a lot, but would love for any comments or questions, send in the chat or unmute yourself. So tonight, we're going to be talking about the Amidah prayer. And what I want to do is, when I was planning this, I was really thinking of there's so much to cover about the Amidah, and there's so much to say that I wanted to sort of try to do um, uh, more of I don't even want to say general, but a lot of different topics more on the surface, and then give it food for thought to go into later, further study if you would like. So really, what I want to talk about is through the structure and the the build and the outline of the Amidah, how we, the Amidah Shmonasrei called both, how we see the balance between individuality and the individual and the collective in prayer. So that's really, we're going to be going through a lot of different ideas, but that's really where my focus was, like my anchor of seeing this balance between the collective and the individual, and how we see that through the Amidah prayer. Now, the Amidah prayer is unique from other prayers that we have. It is the climax, the crux, the essence of our tefillah. We are, we have 3 times a day that we're able to say it. And one thing that's really unique about it, well, a few things. One thing is that in this prayer, we're standing tall with our feet together, stationary, not moving, mimicking the angels, because the angels are the people, humans are called holchim, people that walk, and the malachim are called omdim. They're static. We're fluid, we have movement, and angels are static. So when we get to this prayer of the Amidah, we're getting to the left. We're trying to emulate the angels and how close they are to God, and we're trying to get to mimic that level. And we bow at certain points in the Amidah to show our subjugation and our connection to God. So what I want to do is start with a little bit of historical context of when and how and what the Amidah is. So by the way, we don't need it right this minute, but if anyone has a Siddur nearby, that could definitely be helpful in the next few minutes. So the historical context, basically, again, a lot of almost all the topics I'm saying could be its own lecture in and of itself. But in short, excuse me, I have a bit of a cold, so I'm sorry. The historical context is that towards the end of the Second Temple, well, actually, before I say it, I'll bring in I think I could screen share. Let me just double check. Oh, so this is the SCA Zoom, so I can't necessarily screen share. So, all right, I guess you won't see my sources, but that's fine. So basically, in the Gemara, in Masechet Megillah, it talks about when they were developing different prayers and where they came from, and it talks about how Shimon HaPekuli, this rabbi, this Chacham Shimon HaPekuli, he organized the Shmonasrei Berachot, which is another way of calling the Amidah, because there's 18 blessings in it. Well, really 19. We'll see that in a few minutes. And he brought this before Rabban Gamliel, who the head of the Sanhedrin in Yavne. And then right after that, it says no. It says in Rabbi Yochanan that it says that actually the Anshe Knesset Agdolah, the 120 men of the Great Assembly, they were the ones who solidified and codified this. So what is this? That's basically like over a 400 year process. So what basically the conclusion is that the men of the Great Assembly, Anshe Knesset Agdolah, they were towards the end and post-destruction, of the Second Temple. And what they did was they solidified a lot of the things that we have today, a lot of the blessings, a lot of the customs, a lot of the Judaism that we know today, ritual Judaism that we know today is from what they established. And the reason they felt the need to establish all these things was because they saw that the temple was going to be destroyed. They saw the political climate, that it wasn't looking good. And they realized and they saw that most of the Judaism that we had at that time was so connected to the temple that they needed to make a way for the people to connect without the temple, because they saw that was coming to an end. And the way I like to think of it is the same way now it's very hard for us to imagine a life with the Beit HaMikdash, with the temple, what that would mean practically, sacrifices, going up on the holidays, like what that would really mean. It was hard. It was the same way that's hard for us to conceive. It was very hard for them to conceive of the reverse. So the Achenes Hagdolah was sort of preempting that by making a bunch of brachot and customs and things that we would be able to do. And one of the brachot was the Amidah. And Peter, when it says Shimon HaPekudi and Rabban Gamliel and Yavne, so he basically like codified it. It was developing over that process, and it was codified and solidified into what we know today and what we have in our Siddur, basically around that time post-destruction. So the reason for this is that initially Tefillah was not written down. Prayer was not written down. It was a spontaneous, emotional, personal thing. And if anyone who was here heard my listened to last week, we spoke a lot about that, about avodah shebalev, about your own ideas from your heart, your own needs, your own wants, and how to connect that with God. So basically, this was a very very personal thing, and that when they made this Siddur, it was also it was very connected to korbanot and the sacrifices and the rituals in the temple. And so now the Amidah is sort of connecting those two ideas. And what it essentially is a framework. The Siddur is not meant to be a be-all and end-all. It really is the base. It's in a way the minimum that we have to converse and connect to God, and we should be building on that. So the Chamim basically said, we know it might be hard for you to understand how to start talking, so here's the way, the structure, and the ideas that we are implementing, and you could take that further. We'll talk about how in a few minutes. So I like to also think of this as when if you go to people want to pass a big legislation bill in Congress. They're not just writing it on a notepad. They're printing out a whole detailed list of what they need, of what they're requesting. It's a structure. If you're going to talk to an foreign official, the Queen of England, there's all protocols. So the same way, when we're talking to God, it has to be structured and outlines. And the Hachamim gave that to us in the Tefillah, and specifically the Amidah. And because when we're praying, we're going before God, the creator of the universe, the giver of life, like it's not something that should be taken lightly. So we shouldn't just be coming in and being like, well, what should I say here? It should be something that's thought out, conscious, and clear, and not just coming in, not knowing what I'm going to say and being confused. So that's basically a little bit of a historical background of where it came from. But I think that we should always remember that, because when you know that it was almost like a last resort to not lose the prayer that we had. So we should realize that we should, as individuals, we should be trying to build up to that ideal of a very personal, deep connection. So now let's look at the Amidah itself. The Amidah itself is, if anyone has Siddur, you can open up to the Amidah. It was initially 18, and there was one bracha added, so now there's 19. We'll go through them and talk about what was going on. But basically what I want to do now is talk about the structure of the Amidah, the way it's divided, and to talk about a little bit about each of the individual prayers. Again, each section of the Amidah could have its own, hour-long class. with a lot of detail. I'm trying to give here, my goal is a taste and a mindset, more than actually understanding and going into every single detail. So the structure of Amidah starts with three blessings of Shevach, of praise, where we're praising God. Then we have initially 12, but there was a 13th added of request, of bakasha. And then we have the last three of hodaya, or praise, or thanks, or acknowledgement, also you could say, that ends the Amidah. So the Amidah itself, even before we open with the Amidah itself, with any bracha, we open with the words of David HaMelech, of King David, who obviously was able to write many beautiful prayers and connect to God in beautiful ways through his Tehillim, right? So this is a quote from the first words we say in the Amidah are from Tehillim, and it says, Adonai Savatai Tiftach Ufri Yagid Tilatecha, where you're basically asking God to give you the ability to open my lips, and that my mouth will be able to praise you and talk to you. So I think the reason the rabbis and the Hachamim chose to open the Tefillah with this is to give us a mindset of, we shouldn't think that we have the arrogance or it's our right that we should just be able to come and talk to God. Who says, like, why? It's we should take this with a lot of weight. It's a very heavy thing, and that God, you should grant me the ability to have the words to speak to you properly, and help me with this connection. And we're using, King David's words, who was a master of that, of being able to talk and connect to God through his words, through his poetry and his words and his songs. Another way I like to look at it also is we're asking, so to speak, God to put the words in my mouth, meaning I am coming as an individual wanting to say X, Y, and Z, and wanting to ask for X, Y, and Z, and thinking I need or I want all these things. But you, God, the ultimate, you know what I need and what I want. And therefore, I'm asking you to sort of help connect my mindset with your ultimate mindset and goals. So it's sort of that balance of realizing my place and humbling. It's a humbling way to start the prayer. Now, the first prayer we have is called Birkat HaAvot, right? It's called the prayer of the fathers, okay? And it's a very unique in its structure, because most of the berachot that we say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, and then whatever the bracha is, right? We say Melech HaOlam, Master of the Universe. Now here, we don't say a generic Master of the Universe. We say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, Eloheinu v'Elokei Avotenu, right? My mouth already went to the standard. But Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokei Avotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov. We say not just God, Master of the Universe. We say God, the God of my forefathers, specifically Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? We're making this personal. We're not just talking about him as a global God. We're talking about him as a personal God. We have this connection, God, me and you, because of my forefathers, right? And again, I think this connects to the idea of the asking God to open my mouth, because I'm only able to stand here and have this deep connection to you because of the connection that you had with my forefathers and the fact that you chose them. So the same way, also, I think it's also a very positive way to start the tefillah, because it's basically always showing that God's always ready for us to have this conversation. He always wants us to connect with him. The same way, a parent, no matter how much challenges you have with your child, a parent is always wanting to build that relationship with the child and for the child to connect, even if the child, disrespects or goes on a different path. The parent is always wanting that connection with their child. So the same way that God chose Abraham and Isaac, Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov, that we want to connect with him, and he wants us to connect to him as well. So to give that, to realize that we have, again, there are a leg to stand on. I don't necessarily as an individual have a leg to stand on, but God but the Avot and the connection they had with God gives me that leg to stand on. And I think also it's a way of thinking how when you know someone very well, and then even years later you don't see them in a while, but you see this kid and they say, oh, I'm so and so's son or grandson, and even if you never met that person, you automatically smile because you have a connection with their father, even if you don't know the person. It's the same type of idea of that familial love and connection. So that's just a general idea of that, and because of this, we have an intimate connection with God as the nation, as Am Yisrael, as a nation of Israel. Then we go to the second bracha, which is called Gvurot, or Tchiyat HaMetim, strength, and about the resurrection of the dead. And here it's talking about God's ultimate greatness is his ability to give life and death, and to have the ability to give life and death. And in this tefillah, we also ask for rain. And the connection there is because, first of all, when they were writing this, it was an agrarian society. They were relying on rainfall and crops to live. So it's showing that not only does God have the ability to make people live, in terms of getting people pregnant and keeping people healthy and all these things, it's also practically in a way that we might not necessarily focus on day to day, but the rainfall and all that is also God's ability to help us live and sustain ourselves. So we're praising God for his strength and ability to do that. Now we have the third bracha is Kedusha. The word Kadosh, Kedusha, has many definitions, but I think they're all intertwined. It's separate, transcendent, removed, holy, right? This is all about the uniqueness and the separateness and the above allness, I guess, of God and his ability to rule the world and grant us that and connect to us from that level. And he's the one that could sustain us. And that's why we're basically saying we're praying to you and not anyone else, because you're the one who has that ability and that separate and holiness and transcendence. And he also gives us the ability as humans to have choice to be above our animal instincts, right? Because, excuse me. So also humans, it says, Kedoshim to you, that we should be holy because God is holy, that we should also separate ourselves from our animal instincts and use our choice to better ourselves and not run by instinct and make ourselves above, desire and instinct and run by logic. So now once we have that, those first three brachot of Shevach, we basically establish the framework of my ability to talk, my ability and my need and my want to ask God for things. And because once I establish that I have this connection with God from my forefathers, God is the giver and taker of life and sustenance. God is separate and transcendent. Now, once I establish that I am lucky enough to be part of the nation that has this connection, I am only coming to you as the one and only God, holy God. Then I have the ability to think that you're the only one to ask things for. No one else. I can't ask things from anyone else, right? Because you're the provider. So now, before we look at the specific things that we are asking for, I want to talk a little bit about the bakashot in general, the requests that we have in general. If you look at the language of the blessings, the brachot of requests, the bakasha, it's all in the plural. Everything's in the plural, right? If anyone, if you know the Hebrew, right? It's chonenu, it's chonenu, it's slach lanu, re'ena be'onyenu, refa'enu. It's all in the plural language. So this is requiring a person to realize that I'm not asking this for me specifically, whatever these things may be. Yes, I could ask for my specific things that I want to connect and ask God for. We have that opportunity, which I'll talk about in a second. But my personal requests should always be in the context of the collective, of the whole. And we're going to talk about that in another second. I'm going to go more into that. Because I think that it's showing that no man, no man is an island, no person is alone. And I think we really, I mean, at least for me, we really feel that now during this, Corona time, that every person is affecting each other, whether we are conscious of it or not. And I mean, I see most of you are in New York, but I'm in Israel, and they opened schools and they opened a lot of things, and life was sort of back to normal. And then not very quickly, but a few weeks in, there was a teacher in a school that came to school in Jerusalem and wasn't feeling so great, but they didn't think anything of it. And then he had corona and spread it to 150 students. The school was closed. Now there's a bunch of schools that are closing again because of cases. And from 1, 2, 3 people, that it just starts to spiral. So we realize our place, even if we think that it only affects me, it really doesn't. It's an arrogance to think that what I do only affects me. No, what I do affects the whole. And we should really be conscious of that in the way we ask God for things. So let's go through the request. I'm going to go through this generally because obviously it's a lot to go through. I'm going to go through it pretty generally. Again, like I said, these all can be digested in its own lesson. So we start with, I want to start with also how we see, before I go into, we're going to see how they build on each other. That I'm asking for one thing because it's going to lead me to why I need the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. How it's all a building of realizing the things we need, which will ultimately connect us better to God and help me reach my own potential and connection as a person. So we start with the request for bina and for knowledge and wisdom and understanding. And God is the one who grants us that wisdom and understanding. And this is the first request because basically without wisdom, understanding, consciousness, I don't have the ability to even ask. I don't know what I need. Like if anyone, has a relationship with anyone who has any sort of memory loss, dementia, any of that, you see that they lose themselves when you lose your memory, your ability to understand. It loses you as a person, and it's a very sad thing. So the first thing that we need to make sure that we're asking for and connecting with is our mindset, our knowledge, our ability to have that understanding. So and to know what and how to ask for things and where I'm coming from. Then the second thing we ask for is in the slach lanu, right? It's for tshuva. It's for God giving us the ability to forgive us for whatever. It's very general, right? Slach lanu, right? It's just very, very general. Forgive me for my sins and the wrongdoings I have done. And in this tefillah, I think in this blessing, I think it's really it's allowing us to realize we have the fluidity to change, and failure should not be paralyzing. Because there's a lot of different that talks about that the tshuva, the ability to repent, is a gift that God gives us. Because really, we shouldn't necessarily have that ability, right? We did wrong, okay, you did wrong, but God gives us the ability to correct ourselves and to repent. And it's allowing us to, empowering us, to have the control and ability to say, yeah, I failed, or I did something that was not up to par with who I am or who you want me to be, God, but I have the ability to change that and to grow from that. And I think that that's really the essence of the ability to stand and pray at all, is because I'm going through a transformative experience when I'm praying to connect to God. And not letting my failures or my faults paralyze me. Then we get to the bracha of geula, of redemption. and we're asking God for a full redemption, and He's the one who could redeem us, who could save us. And when you look at this bracha, it's not necessarily talking about national redemption. It's talking about a personal redemption. So I think a lot of it has to do with when you're feeling stuck. Depression at its core, people are depressed. It's people who feel stuck, that they don't have options. They don't feel the ability to change. So this is really saying, when you feel stuck in your life, when I'm in a position, whatever it may be, in a certain relationship, in a job, in whatever the situation may be, I want to be unstuck. I want a way out. And I might not, me being in the situation, I might not know a way out. I might feel like I don't know what to do. I don't have any options. So God, grant me those options. God, give me the ability to see other ways out and not be stuck. Then we go right into the blessing of health, of refuah. And it's physical and mental health, right? It's talking about refuat hanefesh, refuat haguf, right? We're talking about getting everyone in of all of Israel to be healthy and strong. And again, we see this as a build up, because when I have mental knowledge and I have the ability to realize I'm not stuck in my negative ways, and not stuck in my failures, and I don't need to be stuck in whatever position I have. I want to be mentally and physically healthy to connect and do what I need to do in this world. And then we go into the blessing of parnasa, of finance, and the way it's written is all about rainfall and crops. Again, this is from an agrarian society, so the sustenance and the money was connected to crops, but now it's really connected to any money job that you want. So again, I have the physical health. Now I need the means to connect in the world. Then we talk about, in the next bracha, is Teka b'shofar gadol l'chairutenu, is kibbutz galuyot, is connecting, is not connecting, is gathering, is gathering all the nation of Israel from all the galuts, all the different places in the world, and to end all our galuts and connect and bring us back into our land, to Eretz Yisrael. And in order to not only worry about helping the world, but we need to worry about helping ourselves as a nation and building ourselves as a nation in our land. Then we get to the bracha of Hashiva Shoftenu, about judgment. Now, this bracha is talking about having the judgment of God, having clear judgment, and getting anyone who is against us, that they should get what their dues, what they deserve. And, when I was actually preparing this class and seeing what's been going on the past few days, and I'm not saying my opinion, I'm not getting political, but I'm just saying that it is very evident in the last few days, when people are unhappy with the justice system, when the justice system isn't working, what catastrophes occur. So we're praying here that doesn't happen, and we have a solid, just, organized form of judgment. So that's all I'll say there. Then we get to the bracha that I said there was one bracha added a little bit later. This is the bracha of the minim and malshinim. It's the bracha of the heretics. And this was later added when there was the Sadducees and the Pharisees. There was division, there was factions in the Jewish world at the time. And there were those that were trying to basically break off from traditional Judaism, and the Hachamim, the rabbis, didn't want those people to be mingling with people, so they put this bracha in, because if you're basically cursing yourself, which the bracha is saying, like, you get rid of all the heretics and all those that are against us, you're not going to be going to be with the collective that's saying get rid of you. So that's where this bracha comes from, and to rid out. So it's connected. It's right after the judgment, because it's saying that when you have these people that aren't connected with the collective, we need to wean them out, because they're a virus. They're causing problems to the collective, and we want them to you to take care of them, you to get them and not let them cause us problems. Then right after that, the same way we're asking for negative, to help us be rid of those negative people, we're asking God to connect and help the righteous people, the tzaddikim. Anyone who's connected to you in a positive way, God help them prosper and what they need. Then we get to Jerusalem. We ask for God to come and go into Tishkom B'toch Yishalayim Mincha, that you should Ubnei Ota Binyan Olam, to rebuild the city of Jerusalem. And then we talk, the next bracha is about bringing Mashiach, Malchut Bet David, having the full Yeshua with the Mashiach. And then we end the section with a general Shema Kolenu, which is a general request that God should accept all the tefillah that we just said. So now I know that for some people that might have been a little too quick, for some people that might have been not enough details, but what I wanted to really show there in the limited time we have was that the requests we're asking for are, yes, have to do with me personally. And oh, by the way, I forgot to say this, that in each of those requests, of those 12 blessings, I, as an individual, have the ability to add something I specifically want. And I add that before the Baruch Atah Hashem of the bracha, before the last sentence of the actual blessing of the bracha. I could add what I personally want. For example, if I have someone close to me that is sick, and Rafa'enu, I could ask God to help cure that person. If I personally need some sort of redemption in my life of not feeling stuck, I could ask God in the bracha of Geulah, help me be unstuck and see options of this situation, how to get out of it, and so on and so forth. To look at all the, Bina and Dat. If I need clarity in a situation, I could ask God in the bracha of Dat, of knowledge. If I felt that I did wrong in Teshuvah, I could say, God, I regret doing this. I want to connect to you. I want to work on this aspect of whatever I did. So obviously, take that however it is personally in your life, how you feel a need to express yourself to God. That there is an avenue for that in the Amidah. And if there is something that you don't find a certain bracha is connected to specifically, the Shema Kolenu, the last bracha in the Bakasha, is a general request that you could there add whatever you feel you need to express to God. So here we see, like I was saying in the beginning, how there's a balance between the individual and the collective, and my personal requests, but also in the framework and the state of mind of me being part of a nation. So now we get to the part. So basically, let me just before we go to the next part, we here are allowed to add. We're not allowed to add in the Shevach, and we're not allowed to add in the Hodaya, but in the Bakasha, we're allowed to add. So just to know where your individuality and personality could come out in the Amidah. So now we get to the next section of Hodaya, of thanks, acknowledgement to God. Now the next bracha talks about the avodah mikdash, right? That we want God to bring back the avodah that we had, and the korbanot and all that we have, that we want that ability to have that connection back. And we're not really asking for it. We're sort of saying, God, accept us and want us so that we could get back to that level of connection with you where we have that. And we have Shekhinah and Sion, we have the Mikdash and the way that it should be. And I'm hoping in this bracha, basically, acknowledging and hoping that I want my goals to be the same as yours, that we have the goal of Geulah and redemption and Mikdash. Then we get to Modim, which is the ultimate thanks prayer. And when we're thanking God here, we're thanking God for seemingly regular things, but miraculous things at the same time. We're basically acknowledging and thanking God for the fact that our life is in your hands. You are the one that is allowing us to breathe and live and survive every day. That all day and all night, you are the only reason we are able to live and move and connect connect in the world, and that we're acknowledging that it is all from your goodness. that I don't necessarily deserve it. It's from your goodness. Um, and I read this, I saw this going around Instagram and Facebook, and I don't know if it's true. And I honestly don't really care if it's true, because I think it's just a nice idea, regardless of if it's true or not. So take from it what you want. I thought it was a nice idea. That there was a story that there was a 93-year-old man in Italy who got better, who had corona, and he was in the hospital for a while. He was on a ventilator. He was in a very bad situation, 93 with corona, but he survived, and he's leaving the hospital, and they're giving him his bill, and he sees the bill for the ventilator, for his stay and ventilator, and he starts to cry. And they go to him, don't cry over the bill, you can figure out the money, whatever. And he goes, I'm not crying because I don't have the money to pay. I can pay it. I have the money. I'm crying because I was breathing God's air for 93 years, and I never properly paid him for it. And now it's taking me, and I spent, these X amount of days in the hospital using the ventilator, and it cost me this much money. How much do I owe God that I didn't thank him and I didn't acknowledge him for beforehand? So again, I don't know if it's true. It was going around. It's a nice story, but I just think it's a perspective to realize that even just the air we breathe, and the little things, so to speak, the little allow us. It should be something that we thank God for. There's a lot of I think I mentioned last time about gratitude journals. I really believe in that, because I really think that if you sit consciously and what you're grateful for, even for 5 minutes a day, and it doesn't have to be great things. It could be that, my grocery order came and I'm able to, make dinner, and my laundry machine's working, or whatever, basic things that I have. And there's actually, I was thinking about a time when, years ago now, but it was one summer, I happened to be on the beach in the summer, and I hit my foot and I broke my toe, a little fracture in the toe. And because of that, little teeny minor fracture, it like messed me up for, a couple of weeks, a month, I think it was, that I really was sort of like not fully able to do a lot of things because of this little tiny stupid fracture in my toe. And it made me realize, like, how we don't really appreciate or think about, oh, my toe, this little thing, but it made a difference in so many day-to-day things that I wasn't conscious of because of that. So to realize to be conscious of that in the Modim prayer, in the day-to-day, of really, we can't necessarily add here, but you could consciously think when you're saying this prayer of, it says, right? That in every minute, morning, night, and afternoon, you're giving me the good. You're giving me this good. You could think for a second in your mind, you don't need to verbalize it. You could think it of all the good that God has, God grants us in our lives. And I think that it's very important that it's after the bakashah, because yes, we're asking God for things and we are lacking. We're humans. We're always looking for what we're lacking more than what we have. It's sort of like a little bit of human nature. But to realize what we do have, and yes, I just had this, this long list of requests from you, but I'm requesting it from you because you are the one that is constantly giving me good, and I would hope and pray and want you to continue to give me the good that you have bestowed upon me. Then we get to the Sim Shalom prayer, the prayer for peace, right? For unity, for harmony, and that we're basically saying that God, you are the source of all unity, of all harmony, of all peace, and that's the ultimate goal of what we're here for. And I think that, this is essentially the end of the Amidah. So we sort of end on this high of peace, of harmony, and we acknowledged God in the beginning. We praised God in the beginning. We saw where this relationship was coming from. We saw He's the only one we could ask things for. We asked Him things in a context, a personal context, and a global context. We then, realized all the praise. It's all coming from Him, and now we're ending with the harmony. There's another paragraph, the Elohai Netzol Shni Merah prayer at the end, which, if you look at different sidurim, they're a little bit slightly different, and different sources that the rabbis were, basically I look at it as, excuse me, that I look at it as the last, I'm sorry, a last hurrah prayer, that I'm throwing everything in, that I want to just make sure I get all my last words, and like I'm leaving God and I just want, remember this, remember that, remember this. Because if you look at it, it's a humbling prayer of realize I'm nothing and everything, you're the source of everything. Do this not for me, but for you and for your Torah and your Kedusha, and help me achieve this because of you. And I want to talk about, I know that was a little bit, I know this was a little bit like a lot of different, tidbits of different things, but I really want to tie together by saying this idea of the balance between the personal and collective in Judaism is something that I think is a very, very high value in Judaism. And I think it's really important because we have to realize that as descendants of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, we have our foot in the door. We have the ability to start this conversation. But we have to, as individuals, take those next steps. It's like, for example, your dad, your uncle, whoever it is, family member gets you an interview in this big company for a job, and you have that in over other people because you were able to, you made the phone call and said, interview my son, my daughter, whatever. But once you get there, you still have to give a good interview. If you bomb the interview, they don't care, so you have to still have your own merit as well. So it's that balance of I'm lucky that I'm part of this nation and that I have this ability and my foot in the door, but I have to maintain that with my own actions and deeds. And there's actually a story in the Nevi'im about Isha Shunamit. She was a woman that helped Elisha the Navi. She helped him, and then he asked her, in order to repay you for your kindness, what can I give you? You were always help, And she said, the words she says were, you don't need to give me anything, b'toch ami anochi yoshavet. I'm a member of my nation. Don't single me out. And she doesn't want to be singled out. And we see this also with other leaders. With Moshe, he said, who am I? With Gidon, one of the Shoftim, he says, I'm just one of the, I'm a nothing. I'm one of from the little, a small shevet. And I think that this idea is showing us that I don't necessarily as an individual want to be scrutinized. I know I'm not perfect. And I want to cling on to the collective for my ability to better myself, and not always not always focus on my individual flaws, but my strengths in the collective. And I think that's why, there's obviously one of the Kol Yisrael Arabim Zilazeh, we're all connected, we're all intertwined. It's not just the saying, it's really that if you want to have a place and connection in this nation, I have to be worthy of it. Remember Rabbi Yosef, he gave an analogy once about when you make pasta. When I make pasta, I need water, right, to make the pasta. But a lot of that water is going to be poured out. So I need to make sure that I'm part of the water that strengthens, that makes the pasta. So what do I mean? Like, yeah, we're all part of the nation, but am I really part of the nation that's going to move the nation forward and connect? And I think that if we have the right context of our tefillah and of where our requests are coming from, and being an individual in a collective, that we hopefully will ask correctly, and God will hopefully answer our requests. Yeah, I'm happy to take any comments or questions. Anyone? No? Okay. Just a little tidbit for next time. I want to talk about a specific person next time. If anyone knows the story of Hannah, we're going to talk about the tefillah of Hannah and how that individual, her individual prayer really signifies this, what we're talking about, the balance between individuality and the collective. So thank you all for coming. And I remember, I don't know if they're here, but I know that last week I mentioned a few sidurim. I'm going to put the links, give me a second. I'm going to put the links in the chat. These are the ones I found online. They're like apparently really hard to find online and really expensive. But I have a feeling if you go into into, and oh, well, this is not, yeah, let me say, no, how do I do this to send to everyone? These are two links to two CDs I mentioned last time. I mean, I recommend them. They're hard to find and expensive, but I think if you go to like any Judaica store, they should have them. So you can just look at the picture and see what it is. Yeah, and I'll put my email here if anyone has any comments or questions that they would like to send. I'm happy to take, or any thoughts that they would like me to expand on next time. So thank you all for coming, and I hope you enjoyed.